Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth edition of the Guru Mantra podcast. I am your host, Guru Charan Kumar. Today, we have a very special guest speaker, Shreya Sai Bhatnagar, a dedicated student who will be sharing the entire EE journey, focusing on experience with her ESS. Shreya is an enthusiastic learner who seems to be genuinely enjoyed the school. She consistently shows enthusiasm for classroom activity and cooperates well with both the teachers and the peer, which I personally seen. Shreya expressed her idea clearly both verbally and through writing and tackle assignment, task, and group work in an organized manner. She regularly exceeds expectation with the quality of her work, demonstrating that she is self-motivated student, especially in IB, who work independently. Shreya, welcome to the Guru Mantra podcast season 4, and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for having me here today. I'm very excited to talk about my extended essay journey. So I'm Shreya. I'm from Delhi. Currently, I'm a student of B.Sc Honours Environmental Science and Sustainability at Azim Premji University in Bangalore. I'm interested in sports, trekking, camping, basically anything outdoors. And I also like listening to music and reading books.
Brilliant, Shreya. So, Shreya, this particular podcast, we are going to focus on your ESS EE in your journey. Before we start, could you tell your topic and a title of the ESS EE?
Absolutely, sir. So my topic was impact of natural and human factors on Uttarakhand flooding. And my research question was, to what extent have cloudburst and unsustainable dam construction activities contributed to floods and environmental landscape damage in Uttarakhand, India, from 2010 to 2020?
Brilliant. So, how did you choose this particular EE topic? And what drew you to that particular area of study in ESS subject?
I think the best way to choose a topic for an ESS extended essay is to first narrow down your area of interest. So I was particularly interested in researching the hydrological cycle and water bodies like rivers and lakes. And I was very persistent on this topic, if you remember, sir. I did not want to choose anything else apart from this. And so because I wanted to pursue environmental science in the future also, I thought about what specific area I would want to study in the future. So for me, that was climate change and unsustainable urbanization. And then I started researching about environmental problems that combine both urbanization and the water cycle. So while doing this, I looked at if I could make any personal connections to the topic. And turns out I could. So now I had a clear focus of what I wanted to do for my EE. And I also had a personal connection that kept me motivated and interested to work on it.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic one. Now, Shreya, can you walk through your planning process? I know extended essay planning process plays a very important role. So from the initial stage to the final draft of your extended essay, how did you plan this entire journey?
The biggest and most important stage that most students overlook is the planning stage. So for a lot of students, including myself, I didn't think that planning would be so important. We think that once we have a topic, we can immediately start researching about it and start writing our essays. But then when we start writing, we realize that there are so many questions unanswered, and then we are completely lost in the process. So this is why I will emphasize that planning that is very important before we start writing. And Guru Sir did advise me to make a list of questions I need to research on and to find data before I start. This helped me have a proper structure and flow to my essay before I even started it. And so I divided my extended essay into different chapters. And these chapters helped me plan everything I wanted to write in my essay. And of course, it gave the structure. And once the basic structure was made, I could start filling in the gaps with content and research. And I would also say one more thing, always submit a completed draft for feedback. Never given an incomplete one. This way we can get both general and specific feedback on our essays for each and every point that we mention. Moving on to the final stages of my essay, after I received feedback, I worked on it a lot and I fixed all the structural gaps. So for example, I formatted my essay better by fixing image placement and naming every table, graph, or image I used. This makes it very easy for examiners to refer to the citations and back to the image that we are talking about. It also makes it much clearer also that we can talk about figure 1 describes this. So it's very easy to refer back. I also made sure I put all the citations in the appropriate format because citations are, of course, very, very important and cannot be ignored at all. And so overall, I think I focused a lot on fact checking every piece of information and making sure my data was accurate.
That's the important part. Fact checking and accurate. That is what IB needed. So, Shreya, what difficulty you encountered, our students commonly encountered during the examination? I want to know, how did you overcome them, that all encounters related to the ESS subject?
There is one main issue that a lot of my friends faced, but I didn't face it as much, and that was motivation to complete their extended essay. That was because my friends chose topics out of their interest range. But for me, because I was very interested in the topic I chose, I didn't face many difficulties in researching or completing my essay because I was very excited to learn about it. And of course, at times I also had breakdowns because it was very overwhelming and there was so much data to work with. But then I think I am to blame for my lack of time management, and that did increase the workload a lot. So we often don't realize it, but time management is also extremely important because you will always have your IAs to finish. And when you don't plan and manage your time, it becomes very, very difficult to meet deadlines. So the biggest difficulty is lacking motivation and time management, in my opinion.
Definitely, time management. That defines a IB student in extended essay. So, how did you develop your critical thinking skills while working on your extended essay? And how did it benefit in other areas? Because I have seen your critical thinking skill apart from extended essay, meeting the midway, even sports, adventure camp. I have seen your critical thinking skill in many areas. But in particularly in extended essay, how did you develop the critical thinking skill?
Externalness is actually a very great way to boost someone's critical thinking skills. So, because I had to constantly question the information I was gathering, whether the sources were reliable, how different pieces of data connected together, and what was the best way to present my arguments to make sure that my essay was understandable and very coherent. So it wasn't just about gathering facts, it was about digging deeper into it, analyzing and figuring out how everything fit together. This skill also helped me in other areas of my life. So now, whether I'm making decisions, solving problems, or just trying to understand different perspectives, critical thinking helps me see things more clearly and makes helps me make better choices. I think it has made me more analytical overall and very confident in my ability to approach challenges. And this applies to both my school life and beyond.
That is true word. So I still remember in your first draft the way you followed each and everything for the criteria. Because I believe how you align with all your text of extended essay with the criteria plays a very important role. So how did you familiarize yourself with the criteria of the extended essay to achieve a good grade?
So, if we pay attention to the guide, we see that IB has very specific expectations for us to meet. The first thing to do is to study that document and understand what is expected. So, once we understand what the standards are that we have to meet, then we can start writing our essay. And while I was writing my essay, I was also constantly referring back to that criteria again and again to make sure I wasn't leaving any room for errors. And the more I referred to it, the more familiar I got with it. So the first thing to do before we start writing our extended essay is to read that document thoroughly and pay extra attention to it.
Correct, 100%. Our students read it 100%. Uh, Shreya, personally, I've seen your
Yes.
final draft. Still, I remember your final draft. You strictly follow the guidelines, okay, and allowing your creative expression in many ways. I've seen your creative expression in many ways in throughout the extended essay, which I traveled you for 2 years. So, how did you balance? How did you balance the need for creativity with a structured requirement of the extended essay?
My extenders allowed me to be very creative because the topic of was my interest. So unlike most students, I was able to connect to my extended essay better and brainstorm more ideas surrounding my areas of interest. And while there are many mediums to be creative in an extended essay, I chose to use graphs and maps to the best of my abilities because that was something I was more familiar with and something I enjoyed looking at. So this means I use them to visually represent my data. and to provide a quantitative analysis. So, because my essay was about the effects of floods and cloudburst and dam construction, I looked at a lot of graphs and maps that showed topographical changes over time. So I took a picture of a satellite image of the area in 2010 and then in 2020. And I was able to analyze the differences that were very obvious. So this makes your extended essay very unique to the examiners, and they also don't get bored reading it.
That's a brilliant answer. So Shreya, another very important question is, were there any particular resources or tool that you were used during the extended essay process, which you want to share to our audience?
Absolutely, sir. In my experience, the most important tool when doing an EE, in ESS especially, is to look at a lot of research papers and journals. I remember you emphasized on it a lot, and that really helped me. So, and I'm saying this because research papers and journals are what fuel your essay. Because everything you write will need to be backed up by factual evidence. You need to cite every single line you write, and which includes any kind of information, whether it's definitions or statistical data, we need to cite it. And when we cite published papers and reputable research papers from reputable professors, experts, or institutions, we increase the credibility of our essay, of our research. So, whenever I would suggest, whenever students you are researching, make sure to always look at uh, websites like JSTOR, ResearchGate, or any other online databases, as they will be your best friends for the next year as you write your extended essay.
Correct. Reading a research paper plays a very important role for understanding the process of extended essay. So, next question, Shreya. How did a feedback from your supervisor, that is from me, shape the final outcome of your EE? What do you say about how the supervisor feedback plays an important role to get a good grades in extended essay?
The feedback I received really helped me look at my EE from an examiner's perspective. So I was able to understand what is it that IB truly wants from me. Because as students, we are simply writing what we understand from the criteria, but we don't pay much attention to whether the examiner would understand it or not. And this is when supervisors come into play, and I strongly advise every student to pay extra attention to the feedback that they receive from their supervisor. Especially me, Guru sir, you helped me a lot in understanding if my EE made sense or not. There were sentences you would say that this does not connect to the paragraph, the entire paragraph. It's not making meaning. And that helped me found loopholes, and I was able to correct them. And I think when it came to finally submit the final version, even if a person with no prior knowledge of the subject read my extended essay, they would be able to understand most of it. And I did this by making my mother read my extended essay, like so you recommended. And she was able to tell me what parts made sense and what parts she found confusing. And so, because everything was cited in my essay, it made more sense because she could refer back to the sources and check if the information was correct or not. And so, to summarize, supervisors, in my opinion, are the most important people in your extended essay journey. And you should definitely use them to the best of their abilities and do value them, please.
Brilliant. So you done it really, that is telling your mom to read it. That's a fantastic one, which I always
Yes, sir.
brilliant. So yeah, I still remember that is on doing the final submission. Friday, you have to submit your final draft of POK to me. And Monday, you have submitted an extended essay to me. I know, okay, it's a stressful job. So how did you
Yes.
handle the inevitable stress and the pressure that connecting with a writing a high stakes paper like an extended essay? Because it's not an easy task. It's not easy task. Back to back, you have IA one side, TOK one side, summative, mock, along
Right.
with the extended essay. So can you tell our audience how did you handle that inevitable stress?
I won't lie, sir. I took a lot of breaks when I was writing my extended essay. It doesn't seem like it. A lot of students tend to sit for hours to write their essay. It did not work for me like that. So I took a lot of breaks because sometimes information became so overwhelming that I would have headaches while writing. Even though I was interested in the topic, it was still very heavy and in-depth research done by experts. So, of course, as a student, because I'm not familiar with all of the terminologies and different methods of experimentation, it was very new to me. So often I took 10-minute breaks where I went for a walk, maybe, or I exercised a little bit, maybe jumping jacks or stretching. And that helped me release some stress. A lot of students find meditation very helpful when they are stressed. Personally, for me, it does not, it didn't, it wasn't very effective. But I enjoyed physical activity, so I found it to be very helpful in releasing the stress.
Oh, that's a fantastic. Deviating your mind to the other areas. So, Shreya,
Yes.
my very important next question is I want to know that's the important part. That is, how did you approach the task of refining and editing your extended essay to ensure it met the IB standard? I still remember we are working on the Google Doc, night 12 o'clock,
Right.
finish, morning 9 o'clock, you will do it. Again, night 10 o'clock, I
Right.
finish editing. Because that editing part for me, refining task, it's a very important part. So could you elaborate how did you approach the task of refining editing your extended essay?
Yes, sir. As you know, sir, I fact checked everything. And I might sound very crazy when I say this, but I actually checked even the most basic definitions and made sure they made sense. So in the beginning, right in the introduction, I was defining what a flood meant, what a cloudburst was. I double checked it a lot of times. A simple definition like this plays a very important role in your EE because I'm going to be talking about it for the entire 4,000 words. So if I get the definition incorrect at the beginning, the meaning of my essay changes.
Correct.
So I had to make sure that everything was correct. And I wanted to be sure that show 100% that every detail and every data was correct. And I think this played a very big role in refining my EE because IB does look out for a coherent analysis, meaning that the analysis has to be consistent throughout your extended essay. So even if you have a seemingly insignificant detail that is a little bit out of line here and there, IB examiners will pick it up and they will deduct marks for it. So fact checking data and making sure that every line makes sense are the biggest factors to define extended essay, in my opinion.
Definitely, fact checking. Which many students don't do it and they lose the mark. So, sure,
Mm.
time management. Time management is a very crucial for external essay. So, I have personally seen you are the perfect time manager. I've seen your work like a military precision work. So, sure, can you give what advice would you give for the effectively managing a student time, a student who those who are doing in an extended essay in ESS?
Yes, absolutely, sir. Time management is the most important skill one person can learn when they're doing the IB program. To effectively manage time, the most important thing is deadlines. And I know students must have heard every senior repeat this all the time. I also heard it a lot. And they might think, oh, I can submit it one day late. But actually, they won't realize that that one day they miss, they are missing out on a lot of productive hours. This means they could have used those hours spent procrastinating to do something that will actually help them, like completing their extended essay. So I remember I always tried not to procrastinate, even though I was very tired. I worked on my EE for 30 minutes. And those 30 minutes were also very effective and very productive. So even if I wrote one small paragraph in 30 minutes, it was meaningful and it contributed to my essay. Another thing I did was I divided the components of my EE and did them one at a time. So I did all the data collection at once and the introduction bit at once. Then I did all the analysis at once. So I was able to focus on one particular chapter instead of jumping back and forth, and that would also confuse me. So this ensured I wouldn't be wasting time going back and forth between sections, and I was actually writing my extended essay. And I could have focused on each section properly without wasting any time. And this, of course, improved my efficiency a lot.
Brilliant strategy. I think that's a best one everyone have to follow. So yeah, there are a lot of skills a student have to excel for doing the extended essay. But I want to hear from you, what skill did you find the most important to develop in order to excel in extended essay, especially related to ESS?
To really excel in EE, there are a few skills you'll want to focus on. First off, solid research skills are a must. You need to know how to find reliable sources, sift through information, and pull out details that really matter. Because you cannot cite an entire research paper, you will have to look at a particular section that is meaningful to your essay. And critical thinking is also just as important because it's about analyzing information you've gathered and presenting your ideas in a more logical way. Another skill is strong writing skills.
Mm.
This will make your essay stand out when you want to express complex ideas clearly and concisely. And again, time management is another biggie. I've talked a lot about this before. With multiple deadlines and essays to write, being able to prioritize tasks and manage schedule effectively will definitely save all students from the last minute stress, which is not worth it. And trust me, that stress is really unhealthy also. So pay attention to detail, I would say, whether it's in your research, writing, or formatting. This ensures that your work is polished and appears professional. And finally, the most important thing is perseverance. This is crucial because there will be times when the workload feels very overwhelming, but you will have to push hard and stay motivated throughout. So to sum it up, I would say if you can master all of these three, four skills, your EE should be a piece of cake for you. I was not able to master all of these skills, especially time management, because that is what I struggled with the most, and it was very difficult to complete my IAs also at the same time in TOKSA, of course. But students who excel in these skills are the ones who have the best extended essays.
Fantastic. And yours is one of the best of the best. Now, Shreya, tell me two common mistakes on the road after completion externation. I want to hear from you. So I have done this two common mistake which others should not do. What is the advice you'll give?
Of course, so the biggest mistake that no one pays attention to is procrastination in time management. It is very easy to underestimate the time needed for research, writing, and revisions. So many students put off starting their extended essay, thinking they have plenty of time, but later they find themselves to pulling all-nighters as the deadline comes close. I've had friends who finished their EE the night it was supposed to be submitted in 6, 7, 8 hours, and that is impossible. It does not. You cannot produce quality work in such little time. So starting early and setting a schedule with milestones and goals will definitely help avoid the last minute rush and produce higher quality essays. When I talk about goals, try setting SMART goals. SMART, the abbreviation. It will help set very realistic and doable goals, and it will also reduce the stress. And once you achieve those goals, you will also feel very proud of yourself, and that will keep you motivated. The second biggest mistake, in my opinion, is not narrowing the topic enough. Choosing a topic that is too broad is one of the biggest mistakes someone can make in their EE. And it might seem like a good idea to cover a lot of topics, but will often lead you to go off track and lose focus. So Guru sir helped me a lot with this. And I remember you suggested I change my research question multiple times so it could be as specific as possible. So narrowing the topic down will help students to dive deeper into specific aspects that will make their essay more thorough and more insightful. And also choosing a focused research question right from the beginning will save a lot of time and help create a more impactful essay. So instead of refining the research question towards the end and you have to change certain pieces of information, it's better if you think of a specific topic from the beginning. You can focus on it and give as much time as you can to it.
Wow. So, Shreya, your last question. Give me 3 tips for
Yes, sir.
EP students to attain an A or the B in their extended essay in ESS. What is the 3 tips you would like to give?
So here is my list if anyone wants to achieve a grade A in EE. The first one is to pick a topic you actually care about. Like I mentioned before, go for something that you are genuinely interested in. It makes the whole process way more enjoyable, and I'm a testament to that. When you're into the topic, you'll naturally dig deeper into research and your passion will show in your writing. So for me, because I chose something I was extremely interested in, I loved researching and writing my essay because I was just so much to learn and I really enjoyed reading the research papers also. It was very new for me and I learned a lot from it. The second one is to make a plan and stick to it. In IB, time management is everything. So creating a solid plan with deadlines for each part of the essay, research, writing, editing, all of that. Break it down into smaller tasks so it doesn't feel overwhelming. What I did was I set personal deadlines based on the deadlines given to me by Guru sir or your supervisor. So I tried to finish a certain part of my essay before it was due, maybe a day before it was due or 2 days before. So on the day it was due, I could make basic finishing edits and submit it without stressing out too much. And also, of course, because I had other submissions also, I could focus on them the same way. Third one is the last one is to get feedback and keep improving. And I want to tell every student this, that do not be shy about asking for feedback, whether it's from your supervisor or your friends, and use their input to revise and polish your essay. In fact, sometimes I did feel, sir, I was bothering you a lot because I was asking you so many questions about how to write some parts of my essay or about the format. But I was extremely lucky to have a supervisor like you who actually helped me and never scolded me for asking any silly questions. And I also remember, sir, like I mentioned before, you asked me to make my mother read my essay. And the last tip, which is also extremely important, is to get feedback and keep improving. Do not be shy about asking for feedback, whether it's from your supervisor or your friends. And I would say use the input to revise and polish your essay. So, in fact, sometimes I did feel, sir, I was bothering you a lot because I was asking you so many questions about how to write some parts of my essay and to format it. And I was extremely lucky to have you as a supervisor because you actually helped me and didn't scold me for asking silly questions. And like I said before, you also you suggested that I make my mother read my essay and see if she understood it. And when I did that, I was able to understand parts that didn't make sense. So, sir, thank you so much for that suggestion. And it really helped me a lot.
Fantastic. Shreya, it's a brilliant conversation with you about your success and all your experience in EE will be lesson for many ESS students who want to take the extended essay to achieve a good grade. Shreya, your final words.
Extended essay is not a small jog or not a walk that you can take. Like Guru Sir, you always said, it is a marathon and it takes hours and a lot of effort to finish it. And I understand it can be very overwhelming and very stressful sometimes, but the only solution is to keep pushing because this is probably the last time you will write an EE in your life. And this extended essay, I want you to make it meaningful and I want you to enjoy this process so you can learn a lot from it. Especially for me, I learned a lot from my essay and I'm studying environmental science in university now. And it's actually helping me understand the topics that I'm studying. It's helping me with critical thinking also. I'm able to analyze the what my teacher is teaching me, and it's very useful overall in your life. So just push through and you got this. Don't stress too much. Do take regular breaks sometimes and believe in yourself.
Wow. Enjoy your process. Whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, listeners, for listening to Guru Mantra podcast with your host, Guruchan Kumar. I hope you enjoyed, have a deep dive into all the tips and tricks from the Shreya Sahai Bhatnagar about ESS EE. If you enjoyed this episode, then like the podcast, please share with your others, and then also share with your social media page. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir.